Fit in 10 Nation, it is day 65. 5 days to go. Can you believe that? 5 days to go. It feels so weird saying it. 5 days to go, officially speaking. Calendly is up for you to book your scans. I know I mentioned this a couple days, but I put the link up in Slack so you can register your scan. I'm doing it over 4 days, I believe. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I'm spreading it out. And yeah, we're winding down. I mean, it's unbelievable. All right, what are the top 5 things you need to take with you if you are going to work out on the road? That is, you are going away. Now, I don't know anybody who's going away right now, but there was a question here. What would be the top 5 things you'd want to take with you in order to complete a workout when you're on the road? So, first and foremost, appropriate attire. I mean, I guess this is kind of obvious, but you want to make sure you have the right clothing and you have the right shoe wear, okay? If you are weight training, I highly recommend that you wear an unsupported shoe, Converse, or something that's got a very minimal amount of cushioning. Of course, if you plan to do some sort of running or something, then obviously you want to have something that's going to be a little more supported. Although there is debate on this, by the way. So appropriate attire, appropriate footwear. Bands of different resistance, this is probably the most important thing. Bands are great. Bands are really, really, I mean, they're certainly not going to, provide you with overload like, a weight room is going to, but they're better than nothing. And they're great to take with you because they basically weigh nothing. So, music may not seem that important, but music for some people is highly motivating for their workout. They get a much better workout. And probably the fifth thing I'd recommend would be a pull-up bar and or some push-up handles. Push-up handles are good because they can make your push-ups a little bit harder. You can also manipulate the positioning of your hand. It's also easier on your wrists. And a pull-up bar, of course, if you can get one that you can easily just set up in a doorway, that would be very helpful for doing many different things, right? You could do like a supine row, you can do a pronated, like a regular pull-up. You could do reverse grip pull-up, and many other things. All right, so those are my top 5. All right, next question here. This is a really good question. I was going to answer this yesterday, but I just did not have time. So the question goes like this: how do we pick which lower body part to train first, second, etc.? Okay, so generally speaking, this is not a rule that applies to everybody in every situation, but generally speaking, do your compound movements first. What are your compound movements? Your compound movements are the ones that are basically any movement where there is movement at more than one joint. So if you're doing, say, bench press, there is movement at the shoulder and the elbow. That is a compound movement. If you're doing a bicep curl, that is an isolated movement. That's just movement at one joint, at your elbow joint. So generally, you always do your compounds first. Okay, now there are some exceptions. Sometimes bodybuilders will do isolation to pre-exhaust the muscle before going to a compound so they can really effectively hit that particular muscle group, etc. But generally, you don't do this. Okay, generally, you do your compound movements first. So always compound first. Warm up. So if you look at an upper body situation or program that we set up for you, we always do a little warm up. Typically, it's for the shoulders. Shoulders are generally a weak area of the body. We see a lot of issues with shoulders. Shoulders are sort of like your hip in that they are a ball and socket joint, so they are more prone to injury. This is why we spend a lot of time warming them up every workout. So we tend to start with something like that and then go into a pressing motion, right? A compound pressing motion followed by a compound rowing motion. And then we might maybe do another compound movement, perhaps. And then we go into our isolated movements. Now, with certain isolated movements, and even with certain compound movements, you could come up with an argument as to why you would put one in front of the other. Generally speaking, I like to do or I recommend doing, shoulder warm up, a compound chest movement, this is very generalized, by the way, of course, a compound rowing movement, and then depending on what other movements I have outlined or you have outlined for yourself, you go from there. Sometimes we go right into isolated movements. Maybe we'll do like a side lateral raise, and then maybe we'll do, bicep curl, then we'll do a tricep or something like that. Those are all isolated movements. In terms of abdominals, I would generally, when it comes to, and I'm just going to use the word core, even though I hate saying this because core is really a big section of the body. So it's a term that's put out in the fitness industry that I do not like. Okay, but I'm just going to use it because people can relate to it. Even though I think that it's just not, it doesn't define things very well, okay? Your core is essentially cut off your arms and cut off your legs. That's your core. There's a lot of different muscles there. But generally when people say core, they're thinking of their abdomen or their abdominal area. And I would suggest generally doing this at the end of the workout, especially if you're doing things like deadlift or a squat. Well, squat would be a really good example, or an overhead press, basically anything where we want to maintain as much stability and strength through the torso, enough rigidity through the torso when we're doing the movement that we don't lose it by doing something that's going to pre-exhaust it, like some abdominal work. So generally speaking, I would say do your abdominals at the end, okay? Although I do know people that do it in the beginning. I mean, people that are very well versed, people that you would definitely take advice from. So there are pros and cons to it, but my suggestion would be to do it at the end, okay? Same goes for, how do we pick and choose? Okay, sorry, so I did upper body first, and you asked about lower body. Okay, lower body, again, same rules, okay? We're gonna do the compounds first, our deadlifts, our squats, after doing a little warm-up movement. Okay, sometimes the warm-up movements are isolated movements, but you can really think of them as just like, that's a warm-up, and then we're gonna go into our compound movements, our squats, our deadlifts, or a squatting-like motion, and then we go into our more isolatory movements. Now with legs, especially when we're using free weights, there are a lot of movements that, might be considered isolation, but really they're not. They're more compound, like for example, a lunge. A lunge, we're technically getting movement at more than one joint, right? We're getting movement at the hip, we're getting movement at the knee. So, and arguably maybe some movement at the ankle, of course. So very, very compound. But still, this would be something that if you're going to deadlift or you're going to squat, you would put afterwards. Okay, so always the big compound movements first. The big compound movements. How do we define big compound movements? The movements where we will be pulling or pushing or doing as much weight as we can, or that you can. So let me give you an example here. You're going to be able to squat more than what you can lunge. Okay, you're going to be able to deadlift more than what you can bench step up. Okay, even though they're both compound movements. So you do your big, heavy compound movements, and then maybe you move into your less weighted compound movements, or we could call them maybe semi-isolated, like you do one leg at a time. Compound movements, and then maybe at the very end we do something that's more isolatory, calf raise, or say maybe a leg curl, something like that, right? Exercises where there's only movement at one joint, okay? So hopefully that clarifies things for you, okay? Again, these are general things. These are general ways that I like to do things, but there are always exceptions, okay? 9 minutes, okay. Message of the day. And if you have any little ones in the room, maybe just I'll let you remove them because there is sort of a swear word. I'm going to take the swear word out, actually, okay? I'll put in a less swear word here, okay? Even though it maybe takes away from the essence of this message of the day, but it goes like this. Consistency will knock the crap out of motivation every time. Consistency will knock you can put in your 4-letter word there, out of motivation every single time. Every single time. Consistency is everything. Of course, we're talking about consistency of the right things. But this applies to so many things in life. Consistency, consistency. Motivation will not always be there. Motivation will not always be there. It just won't. It can't. Well, I wish it could be. Even as much as I love weight training, as much as it's part of my identity, as much as I've been doing it. I mean, I started essentially when I was 9. And 40, whatever, 1 now. So a long time. As much as I love it, it's the consistency and the fact that I know I have to be consistent at it in order to see the results that I want to see. I also know what it does for my brain. So consistency will, I'll say it one more time, consistency will knock the, put in your 4-letter swear word there, out of motivation every single time, okay? Remember that. Consistency, consistency, consistency of the right things. Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, and for the love of God, send me your gratitude. Hopefully, I've not read the latest inputs. It looks like I got a couple more recently. Hopefully, you'll put it in tonight. And you'll send me your gratitude list of 5 things that you're thankful for. I'll talk to you guys all very soon. 5 days to go, guys. Keep up the hard work and determination, and you will be happy that you did. And I will see you either at the gym soon or for your scan in about a week. Okay? Talk to you all soon. See you guys.